When I was a kid, one of the things I wanted to do was play video games for a living. Now, back then we didn't have things like Twitch streamers, and professional gaming leagues weren't really a thing. Fast forward to 2018, I found myself working at a AAA video game company. In this video, I will tell you all the pros and cons of working in a video game industry from the perspective of QA. I worked as a video game tester, or QA, for a little over a year. There was some good, but also a lot of bad. Let's first talk about the pros. Well, let's get the obvious out of the way. You get to play video games as your job, so that's the fun part of it. Sort of. You work in a relaxing environment, and at least at my job, you could decorate your desk and give it a little personality. Some people put figures on their desk, collectibles, and other random stuff. You also had 2 monitors, and a lot of people watched YouTube and podcasts or listen to music while they worked on their tasks. My job had a huge walk-in pantry full of snacks, and we also had 3 refrigerators full of cold beverages, sodas, and of course, a coffee machine. They also from time to time would have dessert days, and we'd get cake on people's birthdays, and we'd also get donuts every Friday. Now, sometimes I did feel like the amount of junk food they were feeding us were them trying to get us fat, so I didn't really indulge in a lot of that food. Also, another perk was getting some cool swag. A lot of times devs would leave some cool stuff on the table in the break room for us. They also would send out emails for giveaways, giving out cool things like figures, video games, collectibles, and also a lot of random and dumb stuff. Of course, another perk is playing games that we make before anybody else. And another cool part was we got to take home copies of the games we worked on or published, so that was a pretty cool take home. Now, when I was in QA, I worked on the dev side. Now, for the company I worked for, we had 2 sides, dev and pub. The difference is dev side works on our main titles, and pub or publishing works on the games that we publish. So people in pub would oftentimes get to play a lot more games than us on the dev side. Another cool or interesting thing about working here was being able to see behind the scenes of how games work, and also seeing games in their early stages before they're finished. Seeing how a game progressed and grew throughout the whole year was really interesting. Also, sometimes you get to talk to devs, and some of them are actually pretty cool, and they get to show you some stuff that they're working on. So that's all the pros of working as a game tester. Now let's talk about the cons. Playing video games for a living sounds like fun, and it can be fun, but it gets repetitive and mind-numbing after a while. You see the same levels over and over again, the same bosses, the same bad guys. A lot of times you're not even playing the game, you're just testing the same thing over and over again. But this comes with the job. You're assigned with tasks like, check all the pistols in the game, make sure they work properly, or check out this one bad guy and make a huge spreadsheet and tell us everything that's wrong with it, and go through all these checklists of its animations, how it works, how it reacts to gunfire, does it ragdoll properly, everything you can think of you have to do for that one bad guy. And that's not just one time. There's multiple spreadsheets that you have to do on each enemy in the game, or each gun, or each grenade, etc. It can get really boring after a while. When I was hired, my lead only helped the 4 new people and I for about 2 days before going on vacation. So that kind of left us up in air on how to do things. Luckily, I had someone in the room who later would become one of my good friends show me the ropes and really help me out until the lead came back. Working QA, there's definitely cliques, and the leads definitely had their favorites, but I'll get to that later. When it comes to testing things, you don't think of constant eye strain. Staring at a screen for 8 hours a day can get really tiring, and sometimes your room doesn't want the lights on, so that bright light gets even brighter when it's completely dark in your room. So that was a constant battle that we had to face. Some people in the room wanted the light on, some people in the room didn't want the light on. I'm sorry, I like my eyes working and not tired. Unlike most jobs where you just go to your manager for things, this job you have to go through your leads before you go to the manager. Also, a lot of the leads didn't actually play the games, and if they did, it was very little. The communication between QA and devs was pretty bad. Devs love arguing with QA and telling us we're wrong, or telling us they have no idea how we found this bug because they're testing it in the editor, which you can't find our bugs if you're testing it in the editor. Now, let me explain for the people who aren't testers. As QA, we test games on a build. This is the most current version of the game. Devs who use the editor to test out problems with the game will not run into the same problems that we ran into because it's not cooked into their editor. I've had to go up to a dev's room, install the build onto his kit, and show him the problem in person because he had no idea how to do that. Speaking of which, most devs don't even know how to play their own game. A lot of times we get in the chat of them asking or wondering how certain things work in the game. Yet they hate when QA gives them feedback on things in the game. Speaking of feedback, we were told never to give feedback to the devs. We can never tell devs our opinions on things, even though we're playing the game ourselves and we're gamers. Well, most of us are. QA in most companies are there to find what's wrong with something before it gets shipped out. But in gaming, we can't tell a dev, this makes no sense, this gun is too strong, this power is too OP. And then when they nerf a character, we can't tell them, hey, this character is literally broken and just doesn't work anymore. Because that's still feedback. So as QA, we have to find a way around the feedback word to get our point across. Coworkers are really hit and miss in this field. Where I worked, we had a lot of different people. Cool people, nerds, SJWs, oddballs, and people you really never even heard from. Also, speaking to some people, you'd be surprised that they either weren't really gamers or they don't like the type of game that we're working on. And in my case, it's an FPS, which is odd to me because you would think you would want to hire people who like playing first-person shooters. But that's just me. So there was a lot of girls in my company that were SJWs that made working very uncomfortable. Openly hating on men, pushing their agenda on people, and just trying to pick fights with people. There was multiple times in my room where this would happen, and it just wasn't a nice place to work. And it just wasn't very comfortable to be around. We even had one employee who had some sort of autism, and he's been working there for about 10 years, but he's just very aggressive. Punched monitors, yells, storms out of the room, and much, much more. Yet they keep him around because they say he's a good tester. I've asked other coworkers who have been there longer than me why he never got let go, and it's because they said that the leads think he's such a good tester. But a lot of other testers than I who have to regress his bugs know that is not very true. But they didn't want to get rid of him for whatever reason. We also had leads that didn't really act like leads. If you're doing something wrong in your testing, they won't tell you, they'll just talk behind your back. Unlike other jobs, when you're in need of help or doing something wrong, your manager will show you how to do it and help you correct your ways. Here, they don't do that. Since I was hired, we had 6 new people join. Out of those 7, only 2 people still work at that job right now. You know what one of the similarities were out of all of us? We weren't trained very good. The same lead that left on us left on the 2 new people that were training, and he doesn't even work there anymore. So, what are we supposed to do in that situation? And the leads that are in your room are rarely there. Most of the time they're at meetings. So you're kind of just left with the people in your room to help figure out stuff. And then they wonder why you test the way you do. Also, there's a lot of different ways people tested, softwares they use to screen grab stuff, how people wrote bugs even though we have a template, so you can see how things can get confusing. I've heard so many stories about rude devs and rude leads who got moved up to being devs and in publishing. We had a Slack, which is a company group chat, and a lot of those conversations went from just talking to devs just arguing. And you really just see the bad side of how rude and dumb these devs can really be. You also really don't feel appreciated being in QA. The one and only evaluation I had, they said I needed help working on writing bugs. Remember, my lead left and I'm now just hearing that I'm having problems writing bugs, which is news to me. And when I mentioned to them, well, how about all the bugs I've written? Which at the time was a lot more than all the new people that just got hired and some of the other people that have been there for a couple months. They told me bug count doesn't matter. So if writing bugs doesn't matter, which is a part of our job, then what matters at all? It's hard being at a job where it feels like you don't really have much say or appreciated or much room to move up at all. Also, our CEO even said he doesn't care about us, and that's why our healthcare was worse than the devs had. We also don't get very good raises. I worked full-time, 40 hours plus a week, and my hourly wage was worse than my part-time job's wage. Also, the fact that I had to have a second job shows you I wasn't making a living wage, even working full-time at a AAA video game company. At the end of my journey, the start of 2020, 4 of my coworkers and I were asked to go to a meeting for my manager. Seeing all those who were going, one person who was a close friend of mine and pretty much the lead of his room, and one of their lead testers for the Twitch side of the game was going, one guy who's been there for 10 plus years, and another coworker who was a really good tester who came from another video game company and probably should have been promoted because how good they were. And then there was another game tester and myself. We went to the 5th floor and then HR came in. And they told us, you guys are being let go due to budget cut reasons. Now remember, we just made millions off of the game we just released. Devs are rolling in money and taking vacations while we're working our asses off on this DLC. But we are let go due to budget cut reason. Like I said before, working at jobs like this, you are expendable. And if you're not a kiss ass or a lead fave, you're gonna be the first one out the door. My time as QA was alright. Would it have been better at a different gaming company? Probably. I'm not saying every game tester job out there is like this, but these are just my experiences of what I went through. That, and also hearing this from a lot of coworkers who I worked with at the time saying the same thing. If you still want to be a video game tester after this, great. But remember, this is not a field you're gonna last long in. If you guys like watching this video, hit that thumbs up. If this helped you figure out if you want to be a video game tester or never want to go into video game testing, awesome. Leave a comment below telling me what you thought. And if you guys want to see more from me, hit that subscribe button. And thanks for watching.